what we're going to talk to you about today is how bionic hands, you've probably seen them all in video games and sci-fi, like Luke Skywalker, and how they work actually in the real world. And so today we've got panelists of 5 what we call the ability hand users here, and you're going to get to hear from each one of them. And we're first going to talk about a little bit about how we got to this point, how we developed this hand, and how it kind of works. And then each one of them will share their stories. And so I am Adil Akhtar. I am the CEO and founder of Psionic. We develop advanced bionic limbs that are affordable and accessible to everyone. So hello. And so this is something I wanted to do my whole life, ever since I was 7 years old. My parents are from Pakistan, and I was born in Chicago, but I was visiting Pakistan when I was 7. So first time I met someone with a limb difference, and she was my age, missing her right leg, and using a broken tree branch as a crutch. So I ended up going to a lot of school to work on this problem. So I got a bachelor's in biology from Loyola, master's in computer science there, another master's in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois, PhD in neuroscience, and I left medical school to do this because this was a lot more fun than finishing medical school. But while I was doing my PhD, we got the chance to go down to Quito, Ecuador, where we were working with a man who had lost his left hand 35 years prior due to machine gun fire from a helicopter. He was in the Ecuadorian army, and there was a border war between Ecuador and Peru. And this is a much longer story of 2 weeks of all-nighters and trying to get this hand to work. But this video I'm about to show you guys was one of the international news stations that covered that event of that day.
Un quiteño es el primer beneficiado de una prótesis de mano con ayuda en su financiamiento. El programa es realizado por jóvenes de la Universidad de Illinois en Estados Unidos.
Juan Suquillo es excomandante de guerra. Fue así como perdió parte de su brazo. De esto han pasado más de 30 años.
Varios miembros de mi pelotón sufrieron heridas y particularmente la mía me cobró el brazo izquierdo.
Gracias al avance de la tecnología, hoy puede acceder a una prótesis.
Parte de mí ha vuelto.
Jóvenes ingeniosos y con
My hair
un
was
instinto
cooler.
por ayudar a los más necesitados han desarrollado una prótesis de brazo mioeléctrico con la posibilidad de retroalimentación sensorial, es decir, sentir como una mano de verdad.
Okay, so a couple of things I want to point out. That the hand that you see in that video there, right? It's like 3 times the size of an average adult human hand. It's got wires going everywhere, plenty of breadboards, power supplies, 2 computers, the wall. Despite that, Juan said that he felt as though a part of him had come back, and that was because he made a pinch with his left hand for the first time in 35 years. In fact, he had forgotten how to make a pinch, and we had to retrain his brain by placing a mirror in front of his left missing hand on his left side, and then reflecting his right hand, tricking his brain into thinking that his hand was there and reactivating those muscles. So when he said that, that's when I realized that if I become a straight-up MD, then this just ends up as like a university project. If we want everyone to feel that same way that Juan did, we had to commercialize that technology. And that's when Psionic, our company, was born. And so we started out at the University of Illinois. We just moved to San Diego about a year ago, and that's what the hand looked like then, and this is what it looks like now. So this is retired U.S. Army Sergeant Garrett Anderson doing push-ups for the first time since his Army days. He can even do things like 50-pound kettlebell swings. And aside from just doing like workouts, you can use it for doing all sorts of activities of daily living, something as like menial as closing your laptop lid. Or, in the case of Tina, she got to feed her granddaughter for the very first time because she could hold the bottle, her bionic hand, and her baby with her left arm, her natural arm. And the whole goal of this is to make the lives more convenient for people with limb differences. And that's our goal here, to make the most advanced bionic limbs more accessible than ever. So this is what the hand is like right over here. I've got it right over here, and you'll see some demonstrations from actual users as well, but all 5 fingers flex and extend, and the thumb rotates as well. They're all using their muscles to control the device. I'm using these 2 buttons, but it's basically the same principle. It's kind of like if they flex one muscle, they can bend the hand, or they can make the hand close. If they extend it the other way, they can make the hand open. They can switch between different grips, like here's a pinch. If you're at a rock concert, you can rock on. And then one of our user favorites is the finger wave that we've got right over here. So Mandy's doing here right over there as well. And And so other things about this, the hand is super durable, so I can like smash this, it totally survives the impact. I climbed the roof of my house, dropped it 30 feet, it survived. We put it in a dryer for 10 minutes. I've stepped on it. I arm wrestled against Dan, the para-triathlete national champion, and I lost. And we put this thing through the ringer. This is also the first hand to give users touch feedback. So when you actually touch the fingers on here, you can actually feel it. And so this is 85-year-old triple amputee EQ Sylvester grasping a hollow eggshell while blindfolded without cracking it because of that touch feedback that's on here. Other things is it's the fastest bionic hand on the market. It closes in 200 milliseconds. So it's faster than technically the blink of an eye, which is 300 milliseconds. And so this was actually Dan, 3 minutes after you put the hand on for the very first time. Someone threw him a water bottle and he was able to catch it. And then this is me, Dan. I should probably take this out of the rotation. And so just to give you another idea of how durable this thing is, this is Sergeant Anderson punching through 3 flaming boards with a real-world bionic hand. And these are part of all on our YouTube channel, so if you follow us on YouTube, they're full-length videos that describe the science and the engineering behind all of this stuff. So another one of our panelists, Kate, she came over to our lab when we were back in Illinois, maybe like a year and a half ago, and she was doing bottle flip tricks. You remember that trend where you have a partially filled bottle of water? You can imagine it's a lot harder to do with a bionic hand, but she was nailing these shots, and this one was one of my favorites, where she was in the stairwell, and she got it. So another cool thing about this is that if you're building a hand, so we've optimized our hands for humans to use, right? But if you're building a robot that is doing human tasks, then it makes sense that the robot would use the same hand. And so we actually went to NASA about a month ago, and so Ani and Ryan were there with us, and this NASA has a humanoid robot that uses our hand, and so we're doing VR control of things that would be on the International Space Station, so it was like grabbing things out of the bag, and then just manipulating objects like tools and buttons that you find on the International Space Station, but it's the exact same hand that our human users are wearing that the robot is too. And so that's Ani fist bumping the humanoid robot using the exact same hand as her. But also we can put them on robot dogs too. So we decided to put it on one of those Boston Dynamics dogs and lightsabers. And I had a lightsaber duel against a Boston Dynamics robot dog. So we refer to this as General Grievous's dog. I keep losing these challenges. And so another fun thing that we can do with this hand too is that Addams Family style, we can make the hand walk on its own. So this is what we did on Halloween. We have a lot of fun. And so where we're heading with a lot of this technology going forward, and so as I was mentioning, and they can probably talk about it a little bit too, about how they control their hand is through the muscle sensors that are placed on their residual limbs. But we're actually working with researchers who are doing brain implants and nerve implants as well. And so this next video was on 60 Minutes just like a couple months ago, showing a patient who was paralyzed in a car accident actually control the hand and then feel from it with brain implants.
How you doing, Scott? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Scott, with volunteers including Scott Embry,
And you can feel that.
I feel it on my fingertips.
whose movement and sense of touch are limited by a spinal injury from a car accident. Computer ports in Embry's skull are wired to the motor and sensory parts of his brain. Electrodes pick up the brain's electrical signals that were intended for the muscles. A computer translates those signals to the robot arm.
Middle,
And you can actually
Brain.
feel from each one of those fingers as well.
index.
And so this is where we're kind of heading with this technology. And actually, at the end of this, towards the end of the panel, we'll do a fun demonstration where you guys will actually, like one of you guys will be able to control the hand yourself and then get an idea of where we're going with this with the nerve implant technology too. But we will get back to that. So, I mean, like I said, we're Psionic. You can find our info, like you can email us there. You can go to our website. And also, we're actually in the middle of an equity crowdfunding campaign too. So if you guys want to join our Bionic Revolution and be a part of the progress on what's making this happen, feel free to scan the QR code and invest in the company. We've even had our patients invest, which is just one of the coolest feelings ever, that they get to be a part of us making this for them. So with that, I will now turn it over to each one of the panelists. And Mandy, would you like to go ahead and talk about your experience?
Myself. So I'm Mandy Pursley. Nice to meet you all. So I flew in from North Carolina, but this is actually like my home turf, so I'm really excited to be back. I'm probably more known for like my cosplay work. Be With Spark cosplay. I'm the one who did Cinderella that went viral a few years ago, where instead of giving her glass slippers, I did a glass arm, which was super cool. Yes. And that really kind of gave me a platform to just kind of step up my game with disability inclusion and disability advocacy. And I'm just personally really passionate about making sure kids see themselves represented and making sure that people have access to whatever, technology and tools that they need to live their best life. Because as some of you know, like this world was built for people with two hands. And I was a congenital amputee, which means I was born with a limb difference just below my right arm. And so, I didn't have this kind of technology when I was a kid or when I was a young adult. And so, I had to learn how to move through the world with only one hand. But of course, a lot of things that you don't even think about can be a challenge, like opening a water bottle or peeling a banana, trying to do that like in your armpit can get a little messy sometimes. So I was really excited. I got connected with Adil through social media, and we chatted about San Diego and like trying out one of his arms. And I really appreciate that Adil has really been working to make this kind of prosthetic technology as accessible to people, like to get it into as many people's hands as possible. Their hands, literal hands. Yes. So, because I had been denied for functional prosthetics before, so this was the first time that insurance would actually pay for me to have a prosthetic limb, and a lot of that was the work that Adil did to go through all the processes with insurance. And so for me, it's been really cool to just do all this two-handed stuff that I hadn't been able to do before, or to do the things I had done before, just faster or more efficiently, or just, not have a hard time carrying 2 suitcases through the airport. I was like real excited, I was rolling, great. And so so that's kind of my story. And it's also cool because I'm a congenital amputee, so I don't have the same sense of a hand having been there that some people who lost it later do. For me, having a partial limb is all that I know, but the technology that they have is still able to connect to the muscles that I do have here, and so I can still easily open and close just as if I'd always had a hand, which is pretty phenomenal. And I'm super excited to see all the research that they've been doing and where this tech is going to go in the future.
And so one of the cool things about Mandy's hand too is that it's actually pink. And so
I did the first one.
yes, that's right. And so this is actual carbon fiber that's on here, but we can do different colors of the carbon fiber. And so she has a pink version of the hand, but we've got like red, blue, green, I think we've got a camo one in the works too as well, which will be a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you, Mandy, for sharing your story. Dan?
Hello. Yeah, hello. I am Dan St. Pierre. I am the 2018-2019 Paratriathlon National Champion. Thank you. I lost my hand in 2009 in a work accident. I was a commercial diver, did underwater construction. For a long time after that, I used the body-powered prosthetic for about 3 years, and then, yeah, I was over it. It didn't help me anymore, I'll be honest. I felt like I could do more without it. The myoelectric I had back then, it was very heavy, very bulky. They gave it to me, they told me, don't get it wet, don't get it dirty, don't bump it on anything, don't go to work with it, don't do anything. So I was like, oh, well, after that, I literally wore it twice and it sat in my closet. After that, I gave up prosthetics for a long time. I was just jaded. I didn't think they really helped me that much. And then by chance, I got to meet a deal in 2020. And he said, hey, I need someone to wear my hand for a convention. I was like, okay, let's see. And then, but it was a totally different experience. He handed me the hand. He said, do whatever you want with it. So I do. I beat it up. I break it all the time, and yeah, it's been great. It's been a great experience so far. Definitely looking forward to the future.
Because he was saying we could do all kinds of stuff with it. Like, they actually told me when I first got it, they're like, have you tried washing your hands? And I was all like, I'm not putting this thing in the water. Like, are you serious? And they're like, no, just do it. And I was like, as long as it's in writing. So, but yeah, I can totally wash it. Like, it's water resistant. I guess it's waterproof up to the wrist, right?
Well, it's very good. I've spilled soup on it. On that wonderful note, I'm Kate. So I am infection-based amputee, so I had sepsis when I was an infant. So I was born with 2 hands, but I have absolutely no memory of that. So I'm in that weird little gray zone of, yes, I am an infection amputee, but I'm practically congenital because I have no recollection of ever having a hand, nothing. So I've been using prosthetics since I was 2 years old, and I got that one little dummy cosmetic hand when I was 2, and even when I was 2, I broke it, like I destroyed it. And then they tried putting me in myoelectrics just to train me because it's very important to have good myoelectric muscle control. So then, context-wise, I'm not in sports. So they're like, okay, this little girl is just going to school, but she's somehow breaking literally everything we're giving her. So they got very confused. And then I just ended up eventually stopping wearing it because, like Dan, too heavy and it was bulky. And something interesting about the pediatric prosthetic industry is that, full honesty, it sucks. Just to be real, they give you one grip, and that is all. If you want a cosmetic sleeve it all to match your skin tone, they get just dirty in 5 seconds, so it doesn't even look like your hand after one use. And when you're a kid, you're like, okay, cool, I have this hand, and you don't understand the concept of cost. So you're like, oh my gosh, all these other kids are drawing on their arms. I'm gonna draw on my arm too. So I was not a favored prosthetic user as a kid. And then that was until I got to high school and college was in my future, and I was like, okay, I think I want to try a myoelectric hand again because I'm going to be living on my own for the first time. I need to be able to have the option, at least, of having 2 hands because I'm not going to be near my family at all, and I want to have the option to do as many things on my own. So I was talking to my prosthetist, and I wanted a really cool 3D printed hand. They freaked out. They're like, no, please don't. Hey, there's this company called Psionic. I think you should do that one. Yeah, that one. And that's how I met Adil. It was my senior year of high school, and I've been working with him and using the Ability Hand since. The Ability Hand was the first time in my life that I've had like a parallel vision. Like, I've used myoelectrics my whole life. I've used body-powered upper body prostheses my whole life. But then all of a sudden, now I'm like going through the halls of high school, and I'm carrying my books in like my right arm, and I'm like, oh shoot, I dropped something. So I have to reach. I'm like, okay, cool. I can just reach and grab it. Because all of a sudden my brain was telling me I have a left hand. And my brain was recognizing that I have a full body now, which was a really weird sensation. Like, it's very strange. So now I've been a user for 2.5 years. I'm currently a rising junior at Johns Hopkins University studying biology. And this hand has been extremely helpful. Oh, this is also important. I'm also part of the National Association for the Advancement of Orthotics and Prosthetics. I'm their 2023 Greece Fellow, and with that, I'm studying orthotic and prosthetic legislation and working to get better Medicare coverage, which overall will lead to better overall coverage for everyone.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Goodwin. Unlike Kate and Dan here, this is my first myoelectric prosthetic, so I made the right choice first. I'm in web design and digital marketing, based in New York. I help clients establish an online presence and generate leads and sales for their business. Back when I had my amputation, because I was a traumatic amputee, I had a lot of time to do research before I was able to get approved by insurance. So that's how I came across the deal. And one of my biggest concerns was not being able to go back to some of the activities that I was always so used to doing. I'm very active, I'm big into mountain biking, playing hockey, golf, etc. So during that period, I had a lot of time to do research, like I was saying, so I reached out to a deal. Fast forward a few months, he was kind enough to send me a demo hand where I could try it out and try to get back to all those activities. And I had that hand for a couple months as a demo, and I fell in love with it. I was back to playing golf, back to playing hockey, back to mountain biking. So it really was amazing. It was something that was my biggest concern, and through the ability hand, I've been able to get back to everything I was doing. So even when we were visiting NASA, we were there for Comicpalooza as well, and me and Ani here were able to get some lightsaber training in as well. So with that, I'll introduce you to Ani here.
Hi everyone. My name is Annika, and I am currently a student at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, so from the East Coast. I was born without my left arm, so similar to Mandy, I have a congenital limb difference. And I didn't start wearing prosthetics until my senior year of high school, so when I was 18. So before that, I functioned really well without wearing a prosthetic device. So my first prosthetic I got was a similar myoelectric, multi-articulated bionic hand. And I can just preface, I feel like I live a very active lifestyle. I like to try a lot of physically demanding activities and try a lot of new things. Since coming to San Diego, I've taken up like 3 new sport hobbies, I feel like, so I can't keep up with them all. But that being said, I have realized that since wearing a bionic hand, one of my personal top priorities is a hand that can keep up with my lifestyle. And so what I had noticed with the first myoelectric hand that I had gotten is that it couldn't, and I was breaking it all the time, and as a user, one of the most important things I think is trusting your device and trusting that you're not gonna break it, that you can bring it along with you through your day of doing crazy things, lifting things, whatever it is, and it's not gonna break, the fingers aren't gonna snap, you don't have to worry about sending it in to get a repair. And yeah, my previous device, I was just breaking it a ton, and felt like that was limiting or demotivated me from doing the things that I love to do, which is not something that you want in a bionic hand that's supposed to help you. And so, yeah, so that, and also similar to, I think Dan and Kate, you said, I had first gotten a prosthetic, so not a myoelectric, like all the fingers can move device, when I was 9. So that was the first time that I went to the prosthetist, and it was awesome when I had first gone. I remember I was so excited. I was pretty insecure growing up about my limb difference. I think that this is very common in the limb difference community, but I would wear long sleeves all the time. All the time. It would be like 90 degrees and I would be sweating, but I would be wearing a long sleeve. And so the prosthetist seemed like the answer to all of those insecurities, and I thought it would kind of fix everything. And I got a device that was similar. It was a passive prosthetic. It looked very realistic. They matched my skin tone perfectly, individual freckles, hairs. It's like kind of scary how realistic they can make them look. And wore it for probably 2 days. I don't even know if it made it 2 days, and it now resides in the trunk drawer in my similar situation.
You get bribed to wear mine, so I feel just it wasn't, I guess, practical for my lifestyle, and it also limited me a lot because as somebody with a congenital limb difference, I'm very well functioning without a device, and so that just cut off the interaction between this side of my body and what I was interacting with. So anyways, yeah, the reason that I am here and the reason I'm in San Diego is because I'm interning with Psionic. So in addition to having the perspective and being able to offer the perspective of somebody who has limb difference and identifies as having a disability and wears a bionic hand, I am also working for the company that makes the bionic hand that I wear, which is pretty awesome. And so I have gotten to work with and learn from the awesome people that have designed and manufacture the bionic hands that we wear, which has just been such a cool experience.
Many of whom are in the audience,
yes.
By the way. So
Yes. They're awesome. Yeah. So I can touch on that later if anyone's curious and kind of offer like a back-end lens into how it all works, but yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And so I figured we can show some of the cool things that you guys can do with like the prosthetic hands. And so in front of Ryan right over there. So Ryan's his prosthesis is actually set up with a wrist rotator as well, so he can actually do 360 degrees of wrist rotation. So he's superhuman in that respect. But we just bought these raspberries earlier today, and so it's delicate enough that he's able to grab a raspberry without squishing it, and then rotate it at 360 degrees. And some other cool things about the hand too. So it's USB-C rechargeable. So the same way you plug in your phone, you can plug in your arm. It'll recharge in about an hour to an hour and a half, like 0 to 100%, and then it lasts about 8 hours or so, I would say, for you guys, right? But also, you can charge your phone from your arm as well, so it's another ability we like to do with our users. I mean, I wish I could do that with my natural arm, right? And then some other, we like to put a bunch of Easter eggs in the hand itself too. And so the way that they can update their hand, there's Bluetooth on it, so there's an app for it. There's an app for everything these days, right? So they can configure their muscle sensor settings, their touch sensor settings, like what the grips look like, etc. There's also like a demo mode on here, so I can use that to, use this as like a joystick essentially, so I can control the hand just from my phone. But there's actually an invisible button in the app, and you can actually get it to, let's see if I can trigger it. It plays music. So this is the theme song to Doom, which our director of engineering decided to throw in here. And so, yeah, any 8-bit song that you want, we can actually make the hand play it from the motors. So another superhuman ability that we like to give our users. And so we brought a bunch of things that we can show you guys too. And so we have the volleyball, right? And so we literally just tried this for the first time, like what, 15, like an hour ago. And that's one of the things that we're all about. We don't want to have our users be limited in what they can do, right? So if Ani wanted to try and play volleyball with it, we're not going to be like, no, you shouldn't play volleyball with it. And so I'm going to toss her the ball, and oh man, it's Fighting Illini branded too. Our graduate. Let's see. No!
long one that needs to get fixed.
And so when we first met Dan, we wanted to kind of like push this into the limits too. And so when we first, that conference that he ended up coming to with us, we were like, what could we show that would like really show off like how robust this hand can be? And we were like, can we break boards with it martial arts style? And so we brought some boards with it, and we figured we can give you a live board breaking demonstration. We'll come down in front so you guys can have a better view. And would you like to examine the board too? Make sure that we're not faking this. Does it feel real? All right, great. Confirm. Confirm. It still works. And then, one thing a question that I might kind of open up to the panelists too, and that you guys might all be curious about. So, what are some of the things that you found challenging to do with a prosthesis, and that has become easier to do with a prosthetic hand? And what are some of the things that are still challenging to do that you would like to see this kind of step head towards in the future? And Mandy, if you want to go and start.
I can go first. I mean, for me, it's really just all these little things that you do throughout your daily life that you don't even think about. Like, I used to never order steak in a restaurant because I didn't hold a knife and a fork at the same time, or just anything that, like I said, opening a bottle, I would put it in my armpit and try to do it that way instead of just being able to hold it and twist the lid off. I think the thing that I would like to see, I was very disappointed when I first got this hand because I just finished a soda and I had the can and everyone was like, crush it! And I was like, oh, and the arm was too smart and it wouldn't crush the can. And I was like, okay, I need a can crush mode, okay? Override all that smartness and just crush the cans.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
I have figured out the hack.
So, okay, I'll talk to her about that.
I think for me, one of the big things, like Mandy said, it helps in everyday life that you don't even realize until you get one. Again, another hand. But for me, I would say working out, going to the gym, being able to bench press something again. And I love just leaving my arm on the bar. As I go and add more weight, and then people just stare at it. I think that's for me. But yeah, I think that's a big thing for me.
Guys, I can eat chips.
You demonstrate.
I brought Pringles. Because, okay, when you have a myoelectric hand, like, sometimes when you go to OT, they like try to make you get good at muscle control, and then as a kid, they're like, pick up a chip. Oh, sorry, I was in rock on mode. I'm getting tired, sorry. Oh no, I locked it. There we go.
There we go. Nice.
Okay. Yeah, when I was a kid, I would always destroy.
So my favorite part of the hand that I've come to realize is because it is so fast, the fastest hand on the market, it allows you to do things without really thinking about it. Like if I want to grab this water bottle, I can just quickly go and grab it, and then make it spin too if I want. But with other devices I've tried in the past, or trialed in the past, there's a lot of hands that operate much slower. So if you want to go grab the water bottle, you have to sit here and think about it, and then the hand will slowly close over it. So the speed helps to kind of almost make it feel like an extension of your body and a lot more natural control.
So I agree with everything you guys have said, but something that I don't think we've touched on yet is that as users, often we rely on visual cues a lot, which can be really limiting and also just is additional time when you're doing any kind of a task, right? So if I go to hold this glass, I don't have to stare at my hand to know that I'm holding this glass because I can feel that I'm holding this glass. device, so not this hand, I don't get any feedback that I'm holding this device, so it's different than if I was holding a cup like this, where I often will find myself with my previous myoelectric hand staring at my hand all the time when I'm holding things to make sure that I'm not going to drop it, especially in like a social setting. If I'm holding a cup, don't want to drop it, crash, break everything, it's embarrassing, and you just, again, it all kind of comes back to trusting your device, but the reliance on visual cues is something that I think a lot of users experience, and so with this hand, as Adil had kind of touched on in the beginning, it offers touch feedback. So in the fingertips, there are pressure sensors, and those relate to a vibrational motor that's in my socket. And so my arm will actually vibrate when I'm holding something. So I'm holding this cup right now, and I get a little vibrational. I feel like the best way to describe it is reassurance that I'm holding it and that it's not going to go anywhere, I'm not going to drop it, which is something that I have only been wearing this hand for the past 2 months, but it's been something that I've really loved wearing the hand because I don't have to be staring at my hand when I'm doing everything to make sure that it's functioning properly, which is just a little thing that you don't really think about, and I wouldn't normally think about, but I never stare at this hand to make sure that she's in check, and with this hand now, I don't have to do that, which is really nice.
Yeah, one thing that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but I don't know if we explained it. So the hand with the speed, like you can actually control the speed in real time. So if you want to move it fast, you can, but it also you can control to move it slower. So I can control like how quickly I want to grab things or be able to do things more delicately, which is pretty awesome.
And so one of the things you might have noticed with each one of the panelists is that the way they're controlling the hand is these pre-programmed grips, right? So it's like a power grip or a pinch or like a key grip or a tripod grip, etc. But it's not necessarily like individual finger movements just yet, where if I tell Mandy to just move her ring finger, she can't do that just yet. And so it's one of the reasons why we actually moved down to San Diego is we're working with the military hospital here on bone integration and nerve integration of these devices. And to give you an idea of what that's going to look like, what we're going to do is we're going to have one of you guys actually control this hand. So I'm going to step down here. And can I get a volunteer? Here, I'll go right over here. So what I want you to do, feel free to stand up. What I want you to do is take your right hand and then place it in front of this camera, and then bend your fingers. And so in real time, it's mimicking the exact same movements that they have right on their hand. So, and this is the next level, right? So we're about to start clinical trials soon with some of our partners on these nerve implants. And the idea is that hopefully we'll be able to get people to play piano or type on a keyboard with this kind of technology. So this is what Bobby has looked forward to in the coming years. So thank you. And with that, I'd be happy to open it up to questions.
Hi, I'm really short, so I didn't write it way down. But my quick question for you guys is also thank you all for sharing all of this information. It's really cool. So as a congenital amputee, I get a lot of pain from overuse. I've been on medications for it a couple times. Has the prosthetic helped you guys with the overuse issue? Because I've been desperately trying to get a prosthetic for years.
Yeah, I'm a congenital amputee as well, so I'll kind of explain. So before I got Psionics arm, I had to go to physical therapy multiple times for my shoulder and my wrist. Because when you do everything with one hand, even just driving, all the time with one hand, it really wears you down. So I have found this has helped a lot to just kind of balance me out. And just to be able to do things with this other hand, to carry bags with, the other hand. I definitely feel like it's helped a lot with that for me.
On the flip side, I want to also add that even if you aren't congenital and if you have pain in your residual limb, it has been found to help lessen phantom limb pain. And as someone, since I'm still technically a trauma amputee basically, I still have pain in my elbow, and it helps with overall pain in just the residual limb.
Hi, so my question is, as you go in further with nerve implants, are you finding a higher risk of body rejection of the nerve implants, or how are you combating that?
Yeah, so with the nerve implants in particular, there hasn't been many issues with rejection on that front. There is some issues of like scar tissue that might build around the actual implants itself, which could just make the signal quality degrade or change over time. But from what we've seen is that we've seen some of those users have them in for like 18 months without any issues at all. And so that's our partners at Nerves Incorporated in Dallas, they're the hand surgeons, that's what they were telling us. Now, one of the things is that, so they're all wearing what we call a socket. So this was molded to the residual limb, and then they put their arm inside of the socket, right? What we're working on is instead of having a socket, we're putting a titanium implant that goes in your bones and then comes outside of your body. Now that runs a little bit higher of a risk of infection because there's kind of like an open wound that things can get into. But from what we've seen from a lot of a majority of patients who have that osseointegration is that if they just wash it with soap and water twice a day, that for the most part they're usually fine. The more you pick at it, that's when it gets infected more. But it's always going to be a pro and con type thing, right? The pros of having something directly attached to your bones can really outweigh, the things like sweat and fatigue that you get from wearing a socket all day. Because it's kind of almost like wearing a shoe over your arm, right? And a hand was meant to be attached to your bones. So those are all being actively researched right now too, and so we'll find out even more about it over the next coming years.
So with 3D printing being more and more available to consumers, and especially with metal 3D printing becoming a whole thing, and so how do you either as a company or as a user use 3D printing in all these applications? I mean, I'm thinking like wire replaceable flashlights or something, attachments, all sorts of things, all sorts of things that you could do with it. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We definitely leverage 3D printing, and if you ever come to our lab, which again, if any of you would like to, we're in San Diego as well, so feel free to send us a message, and we have a really cool tour over there of all the prototypes that we've got, and like a robot dog and things like that. But we have a wall of 3D printers, and we make all of these in-house, right? So every single hand that goes out into the world is made here in our offices in San Diego. And so like the palms are 3D printed, but then we'll lay them up in carbon fiber to make them super robust and strong. There's a flexible bone inside of here that's 3D printed, and then we'll put in a 3D printed mold and inject silicone into it, and that's how we get like the silicone fingers. So we're utilizing a lot of those techniques. And I mean, we're always looking into cool like the extensions that we can make to it too, right? I mean, we have the lightsaber dual, right? But we could theoretically just attach the lightsaber directly to the
cosplay arms.
Yep, exactly, cosplay arms and things like that, right? And then we're going to make a 3D printed socket for Ani soon too. That's going to have like light up and things like that too. So there's all sorts of cool things that we can do by leveraging 3D printing.
And I just forgot. As long as everybody can hear you. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay. So hi, my name is Rox, and I'm learning ASL right now, American Sign Language. So I'm just curious if you've gone to that territory of having test users communicate in some form of sign language, and what that looks like. I was wondering how cool it would be if there was a robot right now that was like live ASL translation. So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts.
So we can do some of the signs. The problem is we can't cross our fingers on this because there's only 6 motors, so they can just flex and extend, they can't cross. Because of that, that limits us in all of the signs that we can do. Now that being said, if some of this nerve implant stuff goes really well, and then we can show that we can actually like spread the fingers apart, we're going to be adding in those motors in here, and then that's going to open up the entire like world to doing sign language as well. And that is one of the things that we actually have been looking into.
Hi, 2 quick questions. Where are you thinking of going just so far as cool-looking industrial design? And what's the potential for having some quieter drive, quieter than the stepper motors?
Yeah, those are both great questions. And so in terms of the design itself, right, I mean, we wanted to go with like a carbon fiber look too because we wanted it to be like performance, right? These are super robust hands, these are super sleek, they're super fast, etc. And then we wanted to customize them with the colors, so we're going to have more color options coming out soon. I'm hoping eventually we can even have replaceable ones too, so you can match them with like outfits and cosplay and things like that. As I'm looking directly at Mandy on that. So those are definitely in the pipeline. timeline, and it's always, it's always tricky to incorporate all the features we want to as well, while also making it look really cool as well. So I mean, we need to make sure it's still like waterproof and has all the motor functions and all of that stuff. Can last 2 years at least, right? Through like crazy wear and tear. So those are always on the forefront of our mind. And so the second question about the noise. So a lot of that comes down to the gearbox as well, and we're looking at new gearbox designs to see if we can make it quieter too. And some of our users have said that they wish it was quieter, but some also actually kind of enjoy the sound too, because it sounds like cool and robotic and like and this is like kind of the future, right? that we're living in. So but those are all things that we're looking into.
Hi. So so I've always been a huge nerd. I've always been really into sci-fi settings. So when I look at these hands, I see the future of not only prosthetics, but of just sorry. What are you guys most excited about when it comes to these hands? Like, what are you most excited about when it comes to the progress, or just what you might be able to do in the future that you haven't been able to do with this current?
Okay, guys. So I know we're all nerds here. So like, as you can tell, I just casually switched into my Winter Soldier cosplay. Thank you. So like, we've all seen like the Winter Soldier. We know Luke Skywalker's arc. Like, I personally want to get to that level. Or like, if you've seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with Nebula's arm, please, that's my hope, personally.
I don't know if any others wanted to jump in on this.
I think the biggest thing for me is the new nerve implants. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Not having to wear a socket would be a game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the future. Yeah, when we get to individual finger controls, it's gonna be really awesome. But Adil, like, is actually most excited about NASA, I think.
But you could be working at NASA. Yeah, you can be an astronaut using a bionic hand, working with other robots using a bionic hand, right?
This is Eugene. Who's our last question?
Hi guys, just want to ask, like in that 60 Minutes piece, you had the neural interface on the guy's head, but it looked really big and bulky. So is that also part of your research? And like, are you guys also involved in that? Like in making it more practical and
Yeah, so our hand is compatible with any control system. So for any researchers who are doing brain implants or peripheral nerve implants or NASA or Facebook that are just putting them on robots, you can just literally pop the hand off like this and then just slap it on the robot, right? Or another person. In fact, I think with our robot dog, we could literally just take the hand off the robot dog and put it on Ani's arm, and then she can go about her day, right? And so we designed the hand to be like extensible like that, right? We have a programming interface that allows anyone to control it. So we wanted to make it open to anyone that was doing it. We're working specifically on the peripheral nerve implant interfaces. There's other companies like, for example, Neuralink or University of Chicago that are doing the brain implant interfaces. If, in my personal opinion, I think there's probably a more general appeal of having something implanted like in your arm as opposed to something implanted in your brain. I think we're still going to be like probably 15 years off at least on any like sort of commercial brain implant coming to market. But we wanted to, since there are researchers who are already working on it, we wanted to make sure that our hand would be compatible with those systems when they come out. So they work with systems available now, as well as all the things that will be available in the future.
All right, well, thank you so much. This has been a great.
Thank you.